Okay. We're back. Audio output. Is that right? Why do I have an audio output? Remove. Yes. I don't even need audio input. The mic's there. Okay. The music's always gonna be in the background. We're back. We're back. Not offline though. There you go. Okay. So, again, Happy New Year. Didn't start off great. The stream didn't start off great, and also kind of the year, based on what happened 2 days ago. But yeah, what are we doing today? And the answer to that is we're gonna be mapping. At first, I wasn't quite sure what we were gonna do because it's been a while, but I thought it would be a good time to introduce to you all the new timeline I'm working on, or alternate history timeline I'm working on, which is something I'm calling Splash of a Carp, which is a play on words of like the butterfly effect. And so, the central divergence in the timeline is like France and Austria win the 7 Years' War. And so, let me make this smaller. And so France like gets in exchange because of the treaty they signed with Austria, the Austrian Netherlands, and they get more dominance in the Western Holy Roman Empire, especially along the Rhine. And then Austria gets Silesia back. And then since Frederick was defeated before Peter III came to the throne, Elizabeth was able to take East Prussia, or just Prussia proper, and exchange that with Poland, Lithuania for the Courland region. But once Peter III comes to the throne, he's still like Duke of Schleswig-Holstein, and so like a couple battles take place, and he's able to cement his control over Schleswig-Holstein, and so gets a lot of Baltic Sea access from this, and Prussia largely becomes under this influence of Russia, and becomes under their sphere of influence. So, which leads to this being the map in roughly 1763. So yeah, France still has its colonies in New France. They were able to take Newfoundland and Nova Scotia because in real life they like actually invaded and occupied St. John. Or like it's more like right there. They occupied St. John. And they were able to overrun Nova Scotia, but then that's all they were able to gain from North America, enabling them to secure their passage into Quebec and Montreal, secure the St. Lawrence for themselves. They established new treaties with the Haudenosaunee and the Wabanaki. But then, of course, the colonies are still kind of expanding into the interior. And that's where the world kind of is. In India, France is able to maintain their colonies in South India, so they're spreading their influence north. Bengal is still under the control of the East India Company. But for the most part, France is able to maintain their colonial empire around the world and not have it as threatened compared to the aftermath of the 7 Years' War in our time. So that's what it's starting out as, and I'm planning to make videos and like posts about that on my alternate history page, if that interests anybody. But here it is, like not 20, 60 years later or so. The lore, I'm doing it in like 60-year chunks because that makes it easier. But definitely a lot's changed, and I don't want to go too much into it, but the whole Third Rome coming down to save Constantinople is happening here. They're gaining Russia is gaining influence in the Balkans. France, maybe. No, that's correct, actually. That's correct, yeah. France expanded a bit after the Napoleonic War. A bit. They expanded after the Napoleonic Wars. But the key thing in this timeline is that republicanism really is the bastion, has a bastion in France and in Western Europe, because Napoleon is able to like make himself dictator and like that and supreme ruler of all France, but it's not like he crowns himself emperor of the French, because the monarchy is in New France. So yeah, I'm kind of pulling a Kaiserreich thing here. And the Spanish monarchy is also in the New World, but they're having a bit more tenuous time because Bolivar in Colombia, San Martin in Argentina, and the British are coming down here to, occupy things because, they're British during this time. The Portuguese royal family is also in Brazil. But more intuitively, because France still being and having a presence in the New World, many of the colonies are like, no, we don't want to rebel against the British. They established this, they adopt the Galloway Plan of Union during the, not Albany Conference, which was suggested during the First Continental Congress. And so they go over to Britain and say, like, hey, we just want autonomy, give us self-government. And it's a really heated debate on both sides of the Atlantic, but ultimately the British agree and they are given autonomy. But then the New England colonies still rebel, so it's not a fully peaceful American revolution. There's still a lot of rebellions, although the treaty, the proclamation line of 1763 is in place. Many new Virginians move into Ohio and start coming their own thing. Although the French in New France are trying to stop them, and the Haudenosaunee and the Tecumseh's Confederacy. It's Tecumseh's Confederacy. They still aren't able to stop them, but Ohio isn't technically a part of the British Empire. It's more so a part of Virginia, even though Virginia isn't supposed to have this. So there's a lot of loopholes going around here, and the main trouble for New France isn't even going back to recapture France. It's just being able to survive enough to not lose what they have in the New World. So their big bet is coming into alliances with the American Indian tribes over here. So yeah, the Spanish are having their own problems. They're based out of Mexico. Ferdinand, I think, he's still there. That he's the monarch. Peru and Bolivia. No, they wouldn't be Bolivia. Upper Bolivia? Upper Peru, I think. I forget what it was called back then. But they're still down there. Bolivar likely going to come in from the north. San Martin coming in from the south. We'll see. I don't. It's around this time when those revolutions largely calmed down, if I remember correctly. But right now, Colombia is still pretty united. They're the only, not the only republic. These four, yeah, because Paraguay's here. These four are the only republics in the New World, so they're gonna get asked for a lot of assistance from France and Spain. Oh, the Hispanian Republic and the Lusitanian Republic, which obviously Portugal isn't doing too great, both on the mainland of Europe and in Brazil. But honestly, they're doing pretty well. They got control of all the other colonies around the world. The Napoleonic Wars still kind of happened, but they're different. I'm not quite sure how. That's a lot of lore I haven't got to yet. The whole Napoleonic period is going to be a bit difficult to map out. Because how far do they go? He can't control everything. Well, he could if he wanted to, but the political instability. It's a lot of civil war going on in France, which impedes Napoleon from expanding out. But it's not until the end where he's able to push all the monarchies out, establish the natural borders of France, and solidify control over Iberia, which had its own revolution. Because he doesn't try to put his brother on the throne, but establishes a sister republic in Iberia, and in Portugal, and in northern Italy. It's more stable of a continental system. But Austria's still here. They're able to gain control all of Bavaria over some weird succession thing, and maintain their control over the whole Roman Empire. But Polish partitions still happen to a different degree because Austria's fearful of Russian expansionism into Central Europe and its alliance with Prussia, so having Poland as a buffer state would be really important. But it can't exist fully, so they still get a lot of these lands in their expansion against the Ottomans, which dramatically increases during this time because they want land. Because Peter III's expeditions into the Baltics aren't as successful because those aren't sustainable, and with the Napoleonic Wars, they're able to occupy. So not everything works out for Peter III's plans. Oh, hey, Palmer guy. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. Yes, it's been a while. It's been since I looked at it. It's 2022 was my last stream, and I'm kind of happy that I'm back. But we'll see what happens. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you're hearing me well, and the lore is making sense. But yeah, just keep having comments in the comment section if you want to add anything. But where was I at? But yeah, so Austria they're still Austria. They're still the Habsburgs, and you might heard me the whole Roman Empire still exists. France doesn't dissolve, or Napoleon doesn't dissolve it because he needs to maintain cordial relations with Austria. So it's a weird, delicate balance between the two. France is obviously more powerful, but they need to reorganize themselves after all those years of war and civil war, and prepare threats from the British, because they kind of freaking essentially not blockaded, but they're not suffering from the continental system because they still got the American colonies. They're about to go into Australia. They took over the Dutch East Indies and the Philippines because, they could. Their empires are collapsing, and with the occupation of the Dutch Republic, they're able to take over all the Dutch colonies. And so they divide the Guyanas with Portugal, Brazil, Cape Town, and the Dutch East Indies. But the only colonies that are really still under the French Republic are in South India. So although they are a republic, it's not. It's like the modern like not modern. It's like how the French Republic were still an empire during like the 1800s in the 1900s, because they still had a colonial empire, and so they largely cement their dominance in the Mediterranean. They can't challenge the British in the Atlantic, the North Sea, or the English Channel, and all that. They do have a naval force there, just like for self defense, but they know they can't challenge them like in the open water. So the Mediterranean slowly becomes a French lake as they exert their dominance throughout it. They support Egyptian uprisings after Napoleon goes down there. He senses the importance of Egypt when it comes to maintaining connection with India, which is the only trading access to the outside world, because Europe, they're not going to do so great, and the trade's going to be really important. Piracy is going to be a huge thing that Britain has to figure, because like the colonies are, and I don't know, trade's going to be weird. I'm not sure how to do this, but it's going to be wreaking havoc, and the entire slave trade is going to have a huge debate. As is Portugal Brazil going to maintain that? Does the Haitian Revolution still happen? I'm not even sure. I gotta look more into it. That's the problem. Like, will the Bourbon monarchy under Louis the 17th be able to maintain, or like abolish slavery just to maintain Haiti? Because that's gonna be the largest economic input. I don't think that many of the colonies or like the islands that they have will not be occupied by the British after this point. Maybe one or two of them, maybe Guadeloupe, if they have a sizable French garrison. But none of these places are fur trapping and like shipping with interior tribes. Like, no, that's not gonna be enough to maintain the French in New France. But I think their long-term goal, no, their long-term goal is to get back to mainland France. And even they acknowledge that won't happen for years or decades, because New France does not have that some resources to do so. But yeah, the possibilities are endless, as someone once said. But Greece, they revolt to become the Hellenic Republic. And so France is just forming all these puppet sister republics around the Mediterranean. And then these don't become republics, but they're like protectorates, the protectorates of France. Like, I think they're still like monarchies or beyliks or whatever they were, or sultanates in the case of Egypt. So you got two rivaling sultanates. And so the Ottomans become the sick men of Europe way quicker, especially as Russia starts coming in through the north and establishing all these Slavic puppet states, as they try to create the third Rome, even though the Holy Roman Empire exists. And once you see later, like, Napoleon's going to create like the second Roman Republic. So there's going to be the time of three Romes, or four. The time of four Romes. I guess it'd be three. I think the mantle of third Rome will go here. No, but they're the second one. See, 3, 4, 5 Romes maybe. Like, it's weird. It's weird because Catherine's gonna be weird, but yeah, that's kind of it. Am I missing anything else? Not a lot in East Asia or Asia at the moment. That because it's the ripple effects. That doesn't affect the Tokugawa shogunate, Korea, or the Qing yet, but Britain has control of a lot of things in the South China Sea and in North India, but France is still involved in the South. But because they were able to fend off the British, because the French kingdom was able to really build up their defenses before the whole Napoleonic thing happened. But they took over because New France was not in a position to maintain their colonies all the way over here. So Britain is left as like largely the only global power. Russia's really big and powerful, and France, like Republican France, but they don't have the same literally global influence that the British do. And with their alliance with Portugal, Brazil, and Denmark, Norway, they've secured both their east against Russia and a tentative agreements with Sweden, Finland. But overall, they still have large control over North America, and they're once again expanding and colonizing other regions, especially South America, because they do not want to expand into the interior, because they do not want to have to contend with the new Tecumseh Confederacy, all these native tribes. But because they're American, they many colonists start going into the interior themselves and start creating their own republics later on. But that's later on, and that's like another time jump. But and yeah, the British are largely focusing on where's the Northwest Passage. So they're expanding their control of the Hudson Bay. Oh, Hudson's Bay? No, it's Hudson Bay. Denmark Norway was given this little strip out of compensation and just to ensure their alliance, ensure the British keep their alliance with Denmark and Norway. Yeah, that's it. Is that it? There's a lot of things I still need to work on because I don't know a lot about Iran at this time. I gotta change that up. Especially China's gonna be interesting, and I'll let you guys will find out later on. And like I think these three countries have a lot of potential because I feel like they don't have a lot of focus on during this time period, and there's a lot to learn about them, and that would be cool. And how they're affected by like Republican France. They're a republic from the get go, and how republicanism isn't just some faraway thing in the Americas, but it's at the heart of Europe. And so how will the traditional conservative Austrians face that, still having the Holy Roman Empire around, while they're being squished by the Russians in the east, trying to create Third Rome, with Prussia still not being as a great power as it was in our timeline, but still being their biggest threat in the Holy Roman Empire itself, as they're trying to maintain control over Venice, Lombardy, and to Naples, trying to contain republicanism, trying to contain Russian expansionism. The only hope is working with the British, but they do not want to get involved in continental affairs. They just want to make sure that republicanism doesn't spread outwards. So that's what they've done. And their best hope is, working with the Austrians, but like, how are they going to support them? They can't do a lot through Hanover, and they don't even have Hanover anymore. So there's a lot of geopolitical games at play. So yeah, August 7th, 2022. Yes, yeah. Yes, Palmer. It's a lot has changed. A lot happened like 2 days ago. It's weird. Yeah. Oh, EVW. I miss EVW. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think people like grow out of stuff. It's not like I've grown out of EV. Like Germany winning World War One. I think that's a classic. And I like the scenario that I was like building it into, but I was really interested in like, the 7 Years' War was like really the first global world war, and I think having focused on like having that be a big turning point would be interesting. But it's again, it's more than just that. There's a lot of other things that change, and you guys will see that eventually. But yeah, EVW was. I don't think I'll work on that again as much as I said I would, but I might. I like the scenarios that I was building up into. Do I have any maps of them? Hold on. Let's go down memory lane. I don't. How do I not? Might be on here. Let's see. Because the whole America collapsing was honestly just a red world, like from the Hoi 4 Red World mod. I was like, okay, that seemed cool. I'm gonna do that in my timeline. So I just kept incorporating things, and honestly, that's what Splash of a Carp is. But hopefully, makes it more. We're gonna make it more grounded or whatever. Do I not have? I used to. All these timelines I used to potentially make. What is this? Ooh, okay, you're gonna see all the failed ideas of scenarios. So I guess this was a timeline where the British decided we're not going to tax them. We're not going to tax the colonies, and so or something. I forget the thing. So like they just they remain a part of the British Empire, and like God, they get strong. They go to war with it's part of the Napoleonic Wars. I see. This makes sense. So Britain goes after even they get OP. They're absolutely OP. Look at that. American Columbia. Why would they? What year is this? When did I make this? 2018. Ooh, gosh, a little baby back then. So I guess they keep being colonies of the British. Eventually they get Dominion status. So the colonies decide to become a Dominion. I think it's George Wolfe. And I like how I put all the prime ministers there. Let's see. Let's go to the last one. Ooh. What year is this? 1871. Charles Francis Adams. Good for him. Texas. Yeah, this was interesting. I wonder why I never continued it. This reminds me of my Pig War scenario where it starts like a war with the British during the Civil War, which I should continue. There's a lot of things I can continue, but will likely never happen. Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point, Parman. That the main thing is Italy not siding with Germany, like maintaining loyalty to the Central Powers, and like so France has to fight in the Alps. I don't think this is not a great map for that, but at least Austria doesn't need to worry about that. They can focus a lot more on Russia. They can maybe support the Italians in the Alps. More pressure on France. Really threaten Entente support in the Mediterranean. At that point, maybe a Gallipoli campaign couldn't even happen. Did it happen? I don't know. There's a lot of things the World War I video every day that I did for the timeline. I don't know, but yeah, the main thing was Italy not joining. Oh, no, Italy joining, maintaining, staying a part of the Central Powers, and the United States not going into the war. So, because Charles Hughes wins the 1916 election, and the Schlieffen Plan works better because they're distracted in the South. But either way, that seemed plausible. Italy doesn't get as much as they wanted, but then they get a lot of what they want because Austria still collapsed because you can't. How are you gonna want a multi-ethnic empire after you're indebted because of a war? But yeah. Um, let's see. I'm going. Let's see. Let's see what else is here. Um, what else can I mention? Some other things coming along. Ooh, what is this? Okay, as someone in the Pacific Northwest, down the line, like in the 1800s, the British like fully colonize the Pacific Northwest and start creating its own little colonies over here. And so Cook is able to survive his journey from Hawaii and starts another expedition to the Pacific Northwest and starts really beginning the colonization process of the area, which introduces a lot of diseases earlier to the Pacific Northwest, sadly. But by the time full colonization begins, they kind of they bounce back more so than they had beforehand, which does suck. But that's the realism part of it. But they named the British colonizers, named the settlers, name it Cook's Land, and Vancouver's still here, New Caledonia, Columbia, and Boise in Oregon, just different ways that they spelt it back then. And Charlotte's Land, because I learned that. Do I have something about that here? The British Empire. Oh yeah, I made a post about this on, I think, Reddit. It was Reddit. The beloved revolution. So Charlotte, the eldest daughter of George IV, she died at childbirth. In our timeline, her husband was Leopold the First, who became the first king of Belgium, the king of the Belgians, but she lives and gives birth to a son. But since George IV was historically in our timeline very unpopular, I just make a scenario where he just abdicates the throne after George III dies, and so George IV kind of doesn't remain in power or on the throne for too long. But Charlotte ascends to the throne as Charlotte I, and so Charlotte essentially ushers in the Carlotten Age, which is reference to the Victorian Age of this time, and starts an era of which is known as like Rule Britannia, because it's the Pax Britannia, because freaking France, there's two Frances. Spain's in chaos. They're not involved in the continentals. The continent of Europe does not exist. It's called the Discord of Europe because it's like they're not working together. Even though there's like they got the treaty to like split Europe essentially along these lines. They got a sphere of influence, not threatening each other. And Austria and France tangentially try to contain Russia as well, because France wants to have influence in the Middle East because to ensure that they have connection with India. This literally is the only way out to the outside world. They need to maintain that, so they want to make sure Russia doesn't threaten that. Britain doesn't have too much concern about Russia until they start colonizing Alaska, and they're able to do that more here. They kind of get to this point You can see that, if you could see that. But that's like the 1800s. I kind of have everything planned out, but nothing's fully made because I'm still working a lot on this. Between 1763 and 1820, and the Napoleonic Wars are gonna be the big part. But you guys will see that relatively soon, and by soon, not for a while. But see, already a lot has changed within a little under 60 years. What else? What else is happening? Ooh. Okay. What else can I talk about? I'll show you the election map. So, it's New Albia. That's what, once the Pacific Northwest British colonies form into a dominion, they form New Albia, the Commonwealth or the Dominion of New Albia, and they hold their first election. And many of them are pro-Confederation. They like the Confederation. The people in the interior don't really like it because they see it as a way the Confederation maintaining the influence of the coastal colonies or the coastal regions, which they're true. It's, to be honest, but many in the interior like focus on interior trade, so like trade routes into the American interior, trade routes into Canada, British Canada. But all the coasts like focus on trade with the Pacific, like in Japan, China, and Korea. With Alaska, with Russian Alaska up north, with Mexico and Hawaii. So that's the main difference, and so that becomes the main split in the early Dominion of New Albia. The music stop? It has not been 2 hours. It's quiet. There you go. That was weird. What was I going off on? But that's the main political division at the moment. And that I love making these little election maps. They're so fun. And it just makes it look like it's a wiki. Then I'll make a Wikipedia looking article about it. But again, that's a bit later. What else is there? I guess I'm actually doing mapping. Next week I have plans to actually do something I've been putting off for a while. But again, you guys will see. This is the Yankee Rebellion. So, let's see, I was making a video about this, then I realized I should work more on other stuff. But again, the New England colonies rebel. They still rebel. The other colonies don't. There's like New York is the dividing line. The British have control over New York City, so that it's more about the interior and the risk it does to cutting off the New England colonies with the rest of the American colonies, because there are plenty of patriots in the rest of the colonies, but there are state governments, and most of them don't want war because they just gained autonomy. They just gained colonial autonomy, and they're fine with that. They're willing to live with it. But the British are still there. They have the Battle of Lexington and Concord. They occupy Boston. To them, it's about independence, but they don't have the support of the rest of their sister colonies, and so they're on their own. The British are going to be there, and you kind of imagine how New England's going to face up with Old England. So that's a video down the line, like always. Europe. What year is this? It's 1756. So before the 7 Years' War begins. Oh no, the year the 7 Years' War begins. So, yeah, I feel like I was starting a video on that, actually. Or not. What was I doing then? Oh, it's right there. Every week. I was doing a video on it every week. The Third Silesian War. It's called the Third Silesian War in, when it comes to Europe. When it comes to Europe. The overall war is called the 7 Years' War, even though it's called the French and Indian War in North America. This is the Silesian theater and the Pomeranian theater, whatever. But yeah, that makes it easier. Leads, I misspelled that. But yeah, I was gonna do like an every week thing. Actually, a good map, but no, I'll work on it later. Everything's later. There you go. Here's the treaty. The Treaty of Paris. It ends the 7 Years' War. It divides the British colony. It divides the world again. But instead of the British having victory, it's actually the French. So, isn't that fun? The Treaty of Hubertusburg, this time, gives Austria Silesia instead. So, but yeah. That's Splash of a Carp for ya. Oops. A lot of things coming. The medium in which I do the timeline is gonna be pretty different than what I've done before. But again, that's for all of you to see later on. Anything else that would be interesting to note? No. Something about these can be changed somehow. Let's see though. Where is that then, actually? Where's my other? There it is. Let's see. Here they are. That's a bit old. Next week, if I actually do this again and remember to do it, there you go. Congressional election maps for the House of Representatives. This is something I have to work on. Because the midterms in the United States are this year, and I feel like, because I released a video for the Senate, the political composition of the Senate, but I think I should do one for the political composition of the House of Representatives. But it's more difficult because you have to draw all of the congressional districts, and that's time consuming, especially if we don't have maps. And so I got the book from the library and took pictures of all the congressional maps that were in there so I can actually use them as baselines and all. But oops, I didn't mean to click that one. This is taking a while. Okay, hold on. Okay, something's wrong. Understatement. There you go. So I usually just hover it over and like make sure it looks good. And then I just trace it over the map. So that's how that works. Then of course I'll cite the book after in like the description and the sources. But yeah, that's the fun part. Drawing all these congressional districts. So hopefully I can have that by the beginning of Congress next year. So, and I think I'll start working on it again next stream because I think that would give me something to do. And also, whenever I do live streams, it gives me the chance to actually, make progress on things I'm trying to do. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Parman Guy, for being here. Always being here as always. I don't see reason to continue the stream. I think it was good to do this again. I'm glad you joined me, and anyone else who joined me. So I'm gonna sign off now because I'm kind of tired. I had to wake up early again for this, and I stayed up late. But I'm going to sign off now. So thank you again. I'll let you guys know when the next stream is because I think I'll be doing this more frequently again. But farewell.